Hi guys, why is the British government investing so much money and political capital in smashing the gangs and stopping the boats? Surely there are no longer Labour voters who are backing the party on the issue of immigration. Surely they have all gone to Reform, who are offering something more extreme. Well, at Question Time on Thursday night, a bizarre audience member raised what he called the elephant in the room, immigration, as a way to save public money. Now, he claims to be a Labour voter and will not back Reform, but what he wants doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Have a listen.
I think what the British public are sick of is listening to you lot chipping away at each other and never ever answering a question with a straight answer. Particularly you, Mr. Youssef. So I shall give you an opportunity to do that now. We're all saying we want to make savings, we all want to make cuts, but not one party is addressing the big elephant in the room, and that elephant is immigration. I voted Labour, and if we had an election tomorrow, I would still vote Labour, but they would lose, and we would be under a Reform government. A government with no plans and no clue what they're doing. So what do we do to stop that? I'll give you a clue. We've got something called Border Force, and the clue's in the name. So send the Border Force boats out there. As soon as these dinghies leave French water, we turn them round, we send them back, we disembark the passengers, we take away their boats. That's how you smash the gangs, not by flying all over the world like Sir Keir Starmer. And instead of saying, let's build more homes for immigrants, let's have less immigrants for homes. One of you, please, have the guts to answer that directly and not go around, oh, we've invested this and that. We need direct action. We need it now. There's your savings.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. How do we respond to this? This guy, first of all, claims to be a Labour voter, and he would vote for Labour again because he doesn't trust Reform when it comes to dealing with immigration, which is interesting. Now, I presume he's telling the truth. Let's go with the idea that he's telling the truth here. So he doesn't believe that Reform would actually stop the boats. He doesn't believe that they would turn immigrants back. But this whole point of what we need to do is we need to send Border Force into the sea and stop the boats and turn them back and leave people on the shore. This is nonsensical. I've mentioned so many times that these people want to come to Britain. If you drop them off, if you force them back, which is actually illegal, but even if you were to do that, they would just get on the next one. So what you need instead is a safe route. Now, when you're talking about homes, well, the Conservatives were putting people up in hotels because they didn't want to process the claims. The backlog grew and grew and grew. They didn't want to. Even Robert Jenrick, who was an immigration minister, said, we're not going to process claims because that creates a pull factor. So, of course, the backlog increased and people had to be housed somewhere. So a lot of them were housed in hotels or ex-hotels. Let's be very clear about that. And then this created a flashpoint, which, of course, people like Nigel Farage exploited. But the people have to be processed. We're talking about people who are already in the country. We're talking about a small percentage of people who are coming from France because the majority of asylum seekers in France claim asylum in France. A small percentage travel on to Britain. And why are they travelling to Britain? Because they have friends, family, or some sort of connection to Britain. They speak the language. They don't want to stay in France, and there's no obligation on them to stay in France. And I don't think changes to the European Convention on Human Rights is going to change that either. People want to come to Britain. So you have to accept that reality. Politicians have to be honest with people and say, look, there are people coming here because they want to be here. In some cases, they want to work. Why don't we change the immigration system so that people can work? If they work, they're paying taxes. They're filling jobs that are obviously vacant at the moment. And then they can deal with their own housing situation. Now, I keep saying it's the government's responsibility to make sure there is sufficient housing. Pointing the finger at immigrants is not going to resolve the problem. People will complain. Politicians will complain, the problem is immigrants, the scapegoat is immigrants. But they have the responsibility to build sufficient housing to house the regular population and, of course, migrants coming in or asylum seekers. Like, complaining is not going to fix the problem. Complaining is not going to resolve the housing crisis. Government has to resolve it. And that includes creating council houses, affordable housing, to make sure that people are able to get into health, because this is going to become a massive problem at the next election if it's not resolved. And the likes of Reform, who will sit on the sideline and say, well, what we'll do is we'll just stop the boat, so we'll send people back. That's not going to fix the problem. They're not interested in resolving the problem. They're interested in maintaining the problem because it benefits them electorally, I should say. But the government really need to get a grip on this. They need to get a grip on the housing crisis, because if they don't, well, it opens the door to a Reform government. And remember, Reform are there to represent the rich. They don't care about the working class. They never did, and they never will. They will use the working class. They will use the fears of the working class in order to convince them to vote for Reform. But they're not in the business of providing solutions. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what do you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.